So welcome back to the WideFox build. Now over the last 2 weeks you have seen me fit the fiberglass widebody Meyer Racing 3-inch fenders to the doors. Now that those are done, I'm next going to move on to the front bumper, which is the OEM Ford piece, and to the widebody fenders themselves. Now I had left you last week with a decision point for myself on which fascia I was going to make this work for, and I have chosen I'm going to stick with the black original fascia bumper, whatever you want to call it, and make that into the streetcar piece. I'm going to do that a little bit for sentimental value. I think it's going to require a little bit more work on my piece to be able to fix that front tear, or whatever you want to call it, right there on the front. But that's okay. I've never done it before. Of course, I've never done anything on this car yet. So, hey, how you learn. So in order to put these two together, I've got the fender where I want it mounted to the car. I've got the bumper mounted to the car also. And I showed you the gap and flush between the two where they meet. You could take some washers, put them over the studs inside the fenders, and basically use the nut and the stud in the front bumper to basically suck this stuff together. You're going to overstress every part trying to close this gap up, and to me that's just not worth it. I'd rather build in some material in here to make it fit to where I don't overstress the parts trying to pull in and close that gap. So the kitty here is going to do that for me. And how I'm going to do that without putting on too much material is basically use a taper gauge, which is like this. And it's a calibrated piece right here. Of course, it's in millimeters because I told you I work for an OEM, a Japanese OEM. And I'm also going to measure the surface difference, what I call flush. So I've got tape on the fender itself. I'm just going to mark some lines about every 2 inches or so, or 50 millimeters, and take a flush and gap. Basically, what's the difference in here with my taper gauge? How much does that measure? Which means that's how much material of kitty hair I need to add in there to basically bridge and seal that gap up to where they touch. And the other piece is how much material or do I need to add or subtract off of these two to make them fit in, out, or flush. All right, so let me take a minute and show you what I mean by flush and gap. So at this point right here going across, the gap is 3.3 millimeters. This one is 3.5. So if I showed you right there, you can see the line for 3, and between 3 and 4 is a 3.5. So what I want to do is put in kitty hair to fill in that gap, roughly 3.5 millimeters thick. Now, you will notice at the same spot, I'm roughly in the neighborhood of 2 millimeters over flush, meaning the fender is taller than the fascia. Just looking at that. Now you can run a scale directly across. If I had a third hand, I'd do that. But you can see that it's roughly right around the 2 millimeter mark. And if I moved it down a little bit, you can see that it almost gets perfectly flush right there. So just got to fill in a little bit between those two. All right, so with flush and gap taken every inch, and I changed it from 2 to 1, so 25 millimeters or 1 inch. Every inch, I've taken a measurement all the way down. Now I know for the gap how much material I need to add in the kitty hair at each location roughly to be able to fill in that gap to where these two will now touch, and it will give kind of like a support. So the stud will go through it, and then I can just tighten it down to where it will touch. It will come putting it together and put it there. So fill in the gap, bam, things will fit like gold. Now once I do that, I will then go back and fill in these the flushness. So I can either add material to this, or try to subtract either way. But with the fascia, because it's urethane instead of fiberglass, the kitty hair is probably not going to be the best material for that. So I think I need to buy some more material to be able to fix the flush and gap on this, just to make it more flexible, because I think the kitty hair with the flexing of the urethane is probably going to make it crack. That's not good. That's no bueno. So with the front end back taken off, the two screws that went in here, this is where the cowl is at. these two screws were a booger to get out, and I am not going to put those darn things back in. So they did their job of getting this set, which is the curve to the outside to the top. What I'm going to do is probably build up this a little bit, probably build it more towards the cowl and then fine tune it in. Really just not happy, especially on the passenger side, how those two split apart. I just really didn't get what I wanted. But that's okay. Gonna fix it. So what I want to show you guys, so I get in real close, you can see the color difference between the original fender, which is black, and the kitty hair extension, I guess you call it, which is green. You can see basically from the molding line all the way up how much kitty hair I added to these fenders. And I gotta tell you, this stuff's pretty thick. So what I'm gonna do secondary, after I finish up fine tuning the front end with adding kitty hair to close the gap and fix the flush, I'll go back in on this stuff here, and basically around the edge what I'm gonna do is add some kitty hair on the back side to add thickness on the back, because it really doesn't matter at that point as long as it doesn't hit anything. And then I need to reinforce in here, which is where I cut with a Dremel, so that it could fix basically the flushness on the top side. Alright, so now that this is mixed well, nice, good, consistent green color. One thing I did mention, I think I said it in the video 2 weeks ago, maybe when I first started using this, was that I needed to hurry to get this stuff on. And what I've really found is that this stuff, really you want to let it set a few minutes. And it really makes it easier. So it was really as goopy. Remember I showed it kind of goopy off there. What I found is that if you let it sit a few minutes, really kind of starts setting up a little bit. It makes it a little bit more like a thick paste versus a really wet goo. A lot easier to deal with. So what I've got here is basically I set a table up in the center of the room and stood the fenders up with the pieces. So this is the front side here. I've already sanded it, wiped it down with acetone. Good night. I wiped it down with acetone. So everything's clean, and I've also put some tape on the back just to help keep from dripping through. Now, don't worry about filling in your holes, because when you look in the back side, what you'll find is you'll have a green dot where the kitty hair filled in, and then you just basically drill that back out, so it's not a big deal. So what I'm going to do here is build up these surfaces here, and if I get any on the main surface, it's okay, because I got to do it anyway for the flushness to be able to do that. So I've got to fill these in. Just basically spread out some kitty hair. And remember, I have down here on my tape is my measurement, so I know how much I need to approximately do to be able to make this a clean, smooth surface. Okay, so now everything is on at least the first layer of kitty hair where I think I'm going to do it. So a lot of this really only needed, you know, a millimeter or two, so I probably got it pretty close with the first round. But this on the, the driver's side, we're in the area of, if you remember I showed you on the molding in there, it was upwards of about 6.5 mils. Evercoat only says, or they only recommend to go 6 millimeters on their product, so I'm going to push the boundaries of this to make it work. I think because it's really not going to be structural, it's probably okay to go a little bit over that. If it was somewhere else like it was going to be structural, I'd probably say, maybe not go exceed their recommendation. But for this, since it's basically a clamp fixing, I think it's going to be okay, so not a problem. So I've got 2 coats of the kitty hair on there now. Now I did this a couple of days ago, and honestly I've been busy, so I've let it pretty much harden, cure as fully as it's going to be. I want to open these holes back up because I want to put the fenders on the car. And the reason is I don't know how much more I need on the kitty hair on the front. Plus, I'm eager to see how the fenders fit the body, knowing now there's no screws in the cowl, and I just want to see how they naturally fit the car to understand how much more I have to do to make these things fit naturally to where the steel, you set it on the car, you basically bolt it on. I want these to be the same way. I take the fenders, I set them on the car, and I put the fasteners in. Done. They need to fit that way. So rather than drill them from the front with a 3/8 bit like I did before, I'm just going to use my Dremel on the back side. Now I'm just going to kind of go into the holes in the fiberglass fender and just kind of go throughout this way through the kitty hair. And I'll probably just open that up, make it real easy to go in. All right, so with everything bolted back together roughly, let's take a peek at how everything fits. Now you can see in the cowl there, that really didn't split apart like I wanted. Definitely gonna do some more work all the way down through that. Just really did not come out like I wanted. So definitely more work to do. The fender itself, I don't know, I kind of feel like I did okay on that one. Especially on the flushness, you look. That's pretty not bad. I think I'm going to adjust this little area here, adjust it up a little bit more. Probably just go up a little bit more between these two, a little bit more work. That there, not so bad. Definitely need to adjust the bottom a little bit, kick that out, but good fit. On the front, well, honestly, I'm going to say undetermined yet. Not totally sure. On the driver's side, definitely moving in the right direction. You can see just a little bit of light there down by the body molding. So I'm going to have to put in some more kitty hair there to build that up, but definitely moving in the right direction, especially on that top side. You notice I can do a little bit more kitty hair and then some sanding, and that will really fine tune in. If you notice how everything fits well, there's almost no light between it, which is perfect. And last but not least, on the driver's side, not so bad. Now, tell you, if I spin around here, that cowl right there, now that's a pretty good fit, honestly. At least the gap between these two, you can see is a pretty good fit. Probably just a little bit of sanding, a little bit more buildup. I think I can get it to where I want. The trouble I'm having now is you see that this fender has sunk in there because the screw's out of it. So what I'll do is I'll build up this surface and try to get this level again. So basically all that's through here this way is going to be built up so that this is flush. Not so bad, just needs me more time. Fender fits here, not so bad. You know, it's just got kind of a big gap and then it goes teeter down, so this just needs some more sanding and a little bit right here on the tip to build up this surface here. But otherwise, man, I'm really kind of impressed with this stuff. I feel like it fits. Definitely moving in the right direction. So I did some more work on the trunk. So what I've done is taken the 1980 taillights and I've taken out the fuel sender out of it. So looking right there in that piece, that is the fuel sender in that from the 92 harness going down through. Same grommet, 1980 chassis hole, if you call it that. What I've done is I stripped out the harness for the taillights in that out of the 92 harness. And that is just the fuel sender, which is the yellow. And then it has the power. Now it's also going to go through, if you look right there, that is the cutoff switch from the 92. And I'm going to mount that up. And it's going to be beautiful. So it just needs a ground, which I got. And let me show you the inside. So what I've got on the inside now is just basically the rest of the harnesses. Still doing, I guess, slimming down on the harnesses there. But all of that is the main harness, or the one that runs back to the end of the car. So I've got a power wire obviously in there. This is my power wire that needs to be hooked up. And a lot of this stuff honestly just needs to be taken out. So I'm doing it circuit by circuit. And it'll be taken out, and then I'll bring in the 92 dash harness to go literally across the width of the car. Still working on that. Now, honestly, in the title of this video, it is 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So definitely making progress on the fenders and how they fit to the bumper, 1 step forward. Doing the wiring, 2nd step forward. The step back, let me show you. Now, underneath the car, I was hooking up these circuits here, which is like your neutral safety switch, your cutoff switch, your VSS for your cruise and all that stuff. And I noticed my transmission was wet right along this ridge. There's no oil in this transmission, so it shouldn't be wet. And then what I discovered is my transmission is cracked, literally from the front here at the bell housing all the way back to here. Now that's probably a good 3.5, 4 inches, meaning my transmission has to come back out and get that welded up. So honestly, with the discovery of the transmission, it really just put a blow to my motivation. You remember back I had said that I wanted to have this car running by April 1st. Starting, firing, making some noise, April 1st. You see what date it is tomorrow, or this weekend? Obviously that's not going to happen. With the transmission having to come back out, yeah, I've got to weigh my options of, can it be welded up? Do I need a new one and all that stuff? So I've started, honestly, to have a little bit of demotivation to get this thing finished. Can I actually finish this thing? Did I bite off more than I could chew? Can I actually afford to finish this thing at this point if I have to buy a new transmission? There are a lot of things that are starting to weigh on my mind about trying to get this car done to see if I really can do this. So the question will be, from now on, what's it going to take to get there? And can I actually do it?